Good evening, Devi or Sajjano. I would like to welcome you all in Thames Speaks program on MATV Sky 711. Every week on Thursday evening, we always invite someone who has brought a positivity in this community, who has added value to this civilization. There's a very famous quote from Japuji Sahib. Tu karta karna mein nahi, tuj bin duja avru ko nahi. Means I'm just a vehicle or I'm just a medium. You are the actual doer. So this is also a Nishkam Karma Yoga. We have seen a lot of people, those who came to the studio, those who were interviewed in this program, those who have shared their experience. But today is a special day because there are various reasons, but one of the biggest reasons is someone who was trying to become a grocer, but finally ended up as a head teacher of England's or United Kingdom's first state-funded Sikh academy. And he has got unfathomable amount of knowledge, not only about his profession. Out of his profession, he has acquired a lot of knowledge from different books and from a lot of people. So he has recently retired from the school, but I can say basically betterment of the pupils and he supports all those new ideas which can bring a smile on the face of the child. So today's program is a special program. I would like to welcome ex-head teacher of Guru Nanak Sikh Academy, Shri Harendra Singh Jodha. Please welcome Harendra Singh Jodha. Good evening. It's really nice to have you on MATV in this program, and all those people who are watching you and audience, definitely they will be positive, and they will feel that there are people in this planet, there are people, those who add a certain amount of positive value, and they change lives of thousands of people. So there are a lot of questions, but I think my first question is, after welcoming, you were born in a small place, Sandma, which is near Jalandhar. I think everyone knows in Jalandhar city, especially the Punjabi community where the Jalandhar is. And finally, you ended up in London. You have gone through different phases and stages in your life. I think everyone, those who are like us, those who are laymen, they really want to know the basic things and all those stages about your life. How was your journey and what has inspired you to become a teacher?
Thank you, Harendraji, for giving me the opportunity to come here. From India, from Sandama, we actually first went to Wolverhampton. That's where my father was. I was very young. Myself, my two sisters, Amarjeet and Tindi, and my older brother Harendra, we were young with no English. I was about 9 years of age. And there were two aspects of the 60s Wolverhampton. On one side, my father used to work at nights, so he slept in the daytime. The whole street knew and made sure that no kids made a noise outside of our house. That was respect. And this is in the 60s Wolverhampton. These days, nobody knows who lives next door, let alone in a whole street. And when we went up to the school, and I was in the junior school, they didn't know what to do with us because we were the first Asian they'd, I think, ever seen. And eventually, they got a special teacher for us. And I still remember her name, Mrs. Stone Street. And she was the old-fashioned teacher. If you get things wrong, she caned you. You got a cane on your hands. And what he taught me, and you, at the beginning you were saying the lessons you learn, and as a young person then, he taught me that you can't learn like this. You can't learn by punishments. It was quite a lesson to learn, really. Through schools, college, and then London University, I spent 3 years. I got a BSc Honours in Psychology. At the end of it, the decision always is, what do you do next? And my thoughts was whether to do educational psychology or clinical psychology. And the advisors at the university had told me to actually do a 1-year PGC spend a year in schools, and that will give you a good insight and also makes you, help you make a decisions. Because I left the decision so late in England, the only place I got was in Scotland in Jordan Hill College. And again, this thing, the first Asian to apply for PGCE. Despite being educated, doing my O levels and A levels in schools here, an honours degree from a London university, they actually asked me to come in and to check if I was competent in English. And I was taken aback, but I went in, with supposed to be half an hour, but after 5 minutes they let me go. And I was enrolled on this PGC, and it was really great.
I'm just interjecting. I think it was which year it was, so I think people will be able to visualize that how many years ago this happened. Which year roughly?
You are looking at when I went to Jordan Hill College, in terms of time-wise, it was about 1974. And there was only two male in out of 100 in the PGC course for primary, which is what I started off. And it was myself and one other male. And the teachers used to play on this. It was like, do a poem, girls. So 98 girls would do a poem. Do a poem, gentlemen. And somehow I found myself reciting this poem and looked, all I could hear was my own voice, and I looked around and said, John, aren't you saying anything? But it was good. But what was more interesting was that I then ended up in a school, Albert Primary, which was in the east end of Glasgow. Very tough area. But probably if I look back, most enjoyable part of my life, the 3 years I spent there. It really was teaching those youngsters who were challengeable. It's a council estate. But what it illustrates is if you take care of the kids, they all know if you care about them. And if you care about them, they don't care if you're an alien from outer space or wherever you are, they will actually respond to you. I spent 3 years most happy there. And then again, crossroads come in your life. I got married in 1978. And I'm just making sure that I remember that date in case I get told of after the program.
The years which you are mentioning, I can just add one thing. I think our existence on this planet was not traceable on this planet, the years which you're mentioning.
Yeah. And as it happened when we get married, the teacher salaries those days weren't very much. And my brother had a business, and he's such a nice, kind, and so went in. He said, look, work with him. And of course, you need the sort of the business to actually live a life. But business never mixed with me. It's like oil and water. And my head teacher from Albert Primary, Donald Mackay, he kept in touch, particularly with my wife, and kept egging her on that he actually should be in schools. And so after a lot of consideration and talking to my brother and my parents and everybody else, and I decided to go back into schools.
So you spent roughly around 4 years as a grocer?
4 years in the shops, yeah.
So if you would have been stayed there, maybe you would have owned maybe a chain of few grocery shops or convenience stores, or maybe a chain of convenience stores by this time.
I would agree with you, Harendraji, but I wouldn't have been happy.
Yes.
That's the sort of thing.
This is an inner flame. Sometimes I think a lot of people, those who are in my age or stage, they always feel that we are carving the pathway in our life. But I personally believe that sometimes circumstances are in front of you, and then you have to choose out of all those choices. And if you have made a choice which is based on your passion, definitely you are going to succeed.
Well, landed up in. Sorry, go on.
So I think in that stage you were also confused between those two choices. Should I continue as a grocer, or should I turn as a teacher? So I think you made your choice, and when you will look back today, you can clearly see the direction of the life has completely changed.
I think, you're never so sure. If I'm going to be completely honest, and I ended up in a school when I returned back into teaching, one of the toughest schools in Glasgow, because you don't get a choice
Yeah.
after being out of teaching. There were 35 kids in a class, roughly 11, 12 years old. And we had three teachers who resigned because of that class. They were actually exceptionally challenging kids. If I give you an example, that in one situation, as was prior to me going there, they actually saw a blind man. They went to find out where he lived, and they broke all his windows. It was the most unethical thing you could ever think of. And when I went there and looked at these youngsters, they all had very different needs. And what I used to do is that each and every one of them, I mean, you talk about care plans now. I used to make 35 ones every single night so that these kids will have an individual plan which will ensure that they actually are learning rather than looking at ways to cause disruption in the classroom. It meant that, you going to school at 7, and I wasn't finishing working till 11, 12 o'clock at night time, although my wife helped me with all these plans. But what it led to was that these youngsters begin to change. And I was putting all the hours, and at one stage, and sometimes it's not always plain sailing, I was out on a training and another teacher took them, and they were equally disruptive. And I came back, and all the teachers said, well, look at them. This was the response I got. And I got quite angry. I walked into them, and I said to them, I've done my best for you. I will be leaving at the end of this week. I've had enough. And I used to go home for lunch, and it was near lunchtime. I left. I came back after lunch, and the head teacher said, your class are already up in the classroom. And this was 10 minutes before the end of lunch. And I walked upstairs, huge card signed by every single one of them, apologizing for their actions. They never stepped out of line again. And at the end of the academic year, they actually put on a dinosaur exhibition for other schools in the borough, in Glasgow. And that, to me, it was so rewarding. And then again came the next crossroads in my life. My brother, older brother, decided to go to Canada. And he wanted to live there, and he had applied. My parents wanted to come back to Wolverhampton, which was our regional base, and that's where they wanted to spend their retirement years. And my wife was from London, and she wanted to be in London. I loved Glasgow. I loved what I was doing. And here again, trying to be sly, mischievous, or calling my wife.
I will just interject here. I know you were confused between 3 places, but you need not to be confused. Finally, in the end, we have to follow the pathway which our wives are showing to us.
Well, I said to my wife, if I get a promoted post, knowing in my mind that I've only done 4.5 years as a classroom teacher, and you both know you're a teacher, that you would know that with that kind of background, you don't get promoted posts. And I thought that will keep me in Glasgow for another 3 or 4 years. This was the plan in my mind. Lo and behold, within a matter of 4 months, I was given a deputy headship in Newfield Primary School in Harlesden, again a tough area. And I went there, and after 3 months, the head left, she got promoted, and we were told we were getting an HMI inspection. The borough had no choice, and I was the deputy head, although I had only had 3 odd experience. He had 4.5 years behind me. And they put me as an acting head for the duration of the HMI at the request of the staff. I think the guards above smiled. We were the only school in the borough which got a good inspection. And after that, I was made a head teacher there. Again, in those days, and we're going back again in time, there was a lot of politics going on in schools. And I don't like politics in schools. I never have. And so I moved nearer home into Tower Hamlets to a school, Wellington Primary. I live in Charlton. It's about 5 minutes drive from here. Lovely school in a council estate, challenging kids. But again, you win them over, and I was very, very happy there. And then destiny changes again. I know Babaji from Wolverhampton, from the Wolverhampton Gurdwara, and they had followed my career with a keen interest. They told me to visit them in Hayes. I went there, saw this school which had closed, and Babaji told me that both this, it was the old Walsingham Roman Catholic school which had closed down. And this was the summer of 1992. And they said,
So
bought it.
is this the beginning of the foundation of Guru Nanak Sikh Academy?
Yeah.
So you started planning in 1992.
It was bought in the summer of 1992.
Yeah. And when, which year you started actually, the school?
The school started in January 93.
Okay.
So this is summer. And Babaji, showed me the school and then said, look, we want you to go back to your school you're currently at and resign. And what we want you to do is that the school here, we want the future Mother Teresa's, Nelson Mandela's, Pai Kanhaiya to come out of this school.
I think you mentioned this name, and I will just interject here. I was reading one quote about Nelson Mandela 20 minutes ago. And the quote is, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, those who really want to bring in, or those who really want to change the world, those who want to bring new ideas in the world, they basically use education as a weapon, as a tool to mold the minds, or especially younger minds.
Yeah. Which you can use positively or negatively.
I agree. I think every tool or every weapon can be used positive or negatively. But when we talk about the true education, we always believe in evolutionary process, where we believe that with evolution, or when the civilization will have more positive things. So we have to put all these things together. I think this is also a difference between humans and animals.
Yeah.
Human beings, they stay together, they collaborate, they work together, they share ideas, and they push each other, and finally they progress. So when in animals, every generation will start their life from the scratch, but in human beings, every generation will start their life from the shoulder of the previous generation. Because the previous generation will pass their information, their knowledge and their wisdom to the new generation. And when we do this process, that's why there is a civilization, that's why human being is much more intelligent than the rest of the species on this planet.
Couldn't agree with you more. Absolutely so. But as I said, when you get this sort of humanitarian objective, and somebody with two young sons, and then I would never put them in a faith school because of fear of indoctrination, which is why I was saying about the negative or the positive. But this is something which resonates with everybody. Where the kids leave to help others. Essentially, this is what Babaji's objective was to me. And they followed, we opened up in January 1993 and followed 6 years, really, of, I would say, huge pain. And I say pain because we were an independent school. We were very short of financial money, and the building was crumbling. We couldn't afford to pay the teachers. Anything you could think of, we had the problems.
In 1999, BBC published a story that Guru Nanak Sikh Academy became the first faith school, a state-funded faith school in terms of Sikh faith, and they published a story. I think I read that story.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but in between, leading up to it, is so many people's contributions. First of all, I'm talking about the old Walsingham school, which is what was bought, Catholic school, and I remember my sister's father-in-law, Mr. Harendra Singh Jodha, who ran, and at Babaji's request, he did all the running around for the school. And then, of course, when you got no money, etc., you sort of get demotivated. And that happened a lot to us, if I'm going to be honest with you. But Babaji was always there from the spiritual point of view to lift us and give us, saying, look at our Guru's difficulties, our Guru's face, and compared to that, ours is nothing. And then we used to look at our parents who trusted us with these kids. Yes, we have difficulties, but they're still trusting us to do the education. And then the children themselves were absolutely phenomenal. I mean, it might raining, and they'll wear coats or put buckets in. And then the staff from all different religions, all different backgrounds, but all believing in the same objective. And I think because of that cohesiveness with the staff, and I think and always believe that diversity is a strength, huge, huge strength. And those staff from all different backgrounds worked so hard with the kids, despite not getting paid for months on end, because we didn't have the funds, that the results, GCSE, were hitting 70-odd%. Now, when you think of really the background of staff, a lot of staff were inexperienced, didn't have the formal qualifications, but they actually took the school. And then we had help from John McDonnell, the local MP, from the local authority, with the chair of the education, Peter Ryerson, Jenny Chadwick, who was one of the inspectors. And then finally, the promised land, state funding in September 1999. And
I have one question.
Yeah.
When BBC published the story, then when I was reading it, then the one question came to my mind that there are thousands of state schools in this country. There are thousands of even religious schools from church and Jewish centers are also in this country. What was the actual need of Guru Nanak Sikh Academy in this country, or what was the vision behind opening this Sikh school, or do you think how the teachings of the Sikh Gurus are really relevant in the Western world in 21st century? So these were the questions which came to my mind, that what was the actual need for that particular school?
If I could just sort of, the articles at that time when we became a state school, same as what you're saying, why is there a need? There was an article by Jasmine Brown in The Guardian, which said, my heart sank when I saw the first Sikh school opening. This is a sort of point of view. And I think what the school brought, and in the whole question was Sikhism, the teaching of Sikhism, etc. Now, if we go back to our original objective, which was actually that we want the humanitarians to be the final product of the school. And in there, and here I was a young boy who come into this thrust into the limelight at Babaji's request. But in there wasn't the knowledge. And here, what I did was doing all my research. What came through to me very loud and clear was seva, humility, respect, equality. These came through all the teachings which came in, and it was getting that into the school, and not because it's it's a PR thing, but they were to be the foundations of the school. Because if the foundation is strong, then everything else will be strong. And it was also for DF, Department of Education, other school, to realize we're the same as them, but all we're trying to do is make those kids, we really be great educationists, but at the same time, do something for humanity. This was the objectives. But to achieve your objectives, you need really good staff.
I agree. Because I think a team is required. Sometimes we have vision, we have ideas, but if we really want to convert that vision and idea on the ground, we really need a good team. Yeah. One of the very famous Indian philosopher, Osho, he once said few things, and I really want to quote him. So I got that quote with me, and I thought I will share with everyone. One thing, you have to walk and create the way by your walking. You will not find a ready-made path. It's not so cheap to reach to the ultimate realization of truth. You will have to create the path by walking yourself. The path is not ready-made. lying there and waiting for you. It is just like the sky. The birds fly, but they no footprints left behind. So there was a vision, there were ideas, and there was a blessing. And I can say there was a lot of enthusiasm, but I think there was no ready-made pathway. There was no ready-made path for this particular school from 1993. You just created that pathway. We will discuss about this pathway and the journey after the break. And I would like to request all the audience, please join us after the break, and we will continue our discussion with Harendra Singh Jodha, who is an inspiring person and who has spent and dedicated his life for the education. Thank you for the break.
Thank you.
Did you open the bank account?
I did that at the airport in India itself.
How?
With ICICI Bank's UKI mobile app, you can open your current account and transfer money to your loved ones in India instantly.
And the NRI account?
ICICI Bank UK representative came home with a tab and opened my NRI account.
Extend that summer feeling with the Amazon end of summer sale. Up to 40% off on deals for little kids. Up to 40% off on deals for big kids. Up to 40% off for everyone. The Amazon end of summer sale.
How do the plastic surgery go, John? That'll do.
In Yorkshire, when we say that'll do, it means it'll more than do. Great value broadband, award-winning customer service for only £22.99 a month. That'll do. Offer ends 8th of September. Search PlusNet Fibre.
Just, you've said it too.
Just a bit uncomfortable.
Just a bit of tummy trouble. Just a bit of blood. That's new.
If you've had discomfort or diarrhea for 3 weeks or more, or seen blood in your pee, even just once, it could be a sign of cancer. It's probably nothing serious, but finding cancer early makes it more treatable. Just contact your GP practice.
Who are we if we allow our oldest friends to suffer and die? If we let our forests be cut down and destroyed? Who are we? It's time to decide. We could be the generation that lost it all, or we can be the ones that chose to fight. Please call the number on screen or search WWF Join Us to become a WWF member and join the fight to save our world.
You could build your credit score with an Aqua credit card. Check your eligibility without affecting your score. And get all the tools and support you need. At Aqua, we know you're more than your credit score. So, if you're ready to build better credit, we could help you get started. Aqua, helping you build better credit. Search Aqua Card. Representative 37.9% APR variable.
Our responsibly sourced Botanica range is grown by nature, but the UK has lost 97% of its wildflower meadows. So, Botanica by Airwick and WWF pledge to restore 20 million square feet of wildflower habitats in the UK. Join us and let's bring nature back. Botanica by Airwick.
Love that feeling? Join the AA, the UK's #1. Our patrols will usually get you back on the road in around 30 minutes of getting to you. Plus, we'll give you unlimited call-outs, so we'll always be there when you need us. Love that feeling? We'll get you back on the road from £6 a month. The AA. Join today at theaa.com.
At Middleton's, we present our Discovery scooter. Let's take a closer look. Available in copper, red or purple. Easily fold and unfold using the remote control, or the buttons on the rear of the scooter itself. Folding within 20 seconds. And weighing in at only 20 kilograms, this compact scooter adjusts to fit inside most car boots. Middletons. Live life without limits.
Pre-rinsing before you load a dishwasher wastes 1,000 litres a year on average. We're on a mission to change that. Finish Quantum Ultimate delivers a superior clean and shine without having to waste water pre-rinsing. So turn off the taps, skip the pre-rinse, and clean clever.
Good evening, Devi or Sajana. After the break. Before the break, we were discussing with Harendra Singh Jodha, who was ex-head teacher, and he's an educationist. He has devoted his whole life to the education in UK. He was one of the first Asian who has done PGCE in that era, and who was planning to become a grocer, but destiny has brought him into education again. And finally, he has carved his pathway and established an amazing school, which is known as Guru Nanak Sikh Academy in Hayes. So, my next question, Harendra Singh ji, it will be about, again, Guru Nanak Sikh Academy. It started in 1993. In 1999, it has got recognition as a state-funded school, and this is 2021. So this is a journey of roughly around 28 years. And in 1999, you had 135 students. How many students do you have today in the school?
Around 1,600.
That's a huge number. Probably, I think, around roughly 8 forms of entries.
Yeah.
8 forms of
and
entries.
So all through. It's all through academy as well.
Yes.
So you got primary, yeah.
When you joined Guru Nanak Sikh Academy, I know Babaji has inspired you and he has also discussed with you. But you were, I think, around 9-year-old when you came to UK.
Yeah.
So you did not learn the Sikh history the way people learn from the community and society back home. So did you feel at some point that you have to learn this? If you have learned, then how did you learn, or what did you do to fill that gap?
I think it was important. I mean, I was absolutely, totally somebody in the educational system here. I was very reserved and sensitive, and that I was thrown into the limelight by Babaji. And it was important for me to, what Babaji's objectives were, to understand and put in the, it was like having a blank canvas and what we're going to put on there. And I first of all read Moklif, a German author, and I know that he's a controversial figure, but I was looking at an impartial view, in a sense, for all of the Sikh history, which I read through. I then did a lot of other books as well to glean what I could, which could then be practical in a school and take out the main things our gurus wanted. And from there came out seva, humility, respect, equality. And that's really the sort of, and as we were saying just before the break, is you needed staff to do it. And there we actually got some of the most able staff. But it was difficult recruiting because they're looking at is it a Sikh school? Why would one to go there? There's this student got a funny uniform, because they were kameez, salwar and that kind of thing. And it was very difficult to convince people to come to us. But when we explained what our objective was, that we wanted these kids to go out and help others, that's really what we wanted. And from the vehicle, the whole aspect we wanted to throw to them was seva, humility, respect, and equality. But we wanted teachers who are not only great teachers, but were great models for those areas. Because at the end of the day, you can be teaching it, but if you yourself have no respect for others or equality, etc., what's the use? Because kids look up to their teachers. And we were fortunate. We had great staff, and the school just went up like a rocket. And we got outstanding Osteds and so on. And that's why suddenly it led to the DFE getting requests because of the waiting number of kids. And it led to a huge building program and where we are today. But tribute to our staff and at all along the stage, and I think parents, if I would say, maybe they looked at me as an eccentric figure or something like this, very supportive. Brilliant kids.
I think I agree with you. I have watched the videos which I have seen from your retirement program, and I was just listening the views of other people, those who worked with you. I realized that there was a sense of inspiration in their heart for you, and they also see you as a role model. I'm not just praising you, but everyone has got certain those positive characters. If they work on it, they will outshine. So apart from these books, apart from this history book, there are two famous books, or I can say the two famous religious books or history books, which are known as Ramayana and Mahabharata, which has impacted Indian traditions, Indian customs, and Indian civilization, and it has also changed scenarios in different parts of the world as well. If you'll go to Mauritius, or if you'll go to UK or different places, you will find the traces and teachings of these two famous religious books also. Can you share me your experience when you have gone through these books?
I've watched the films, the series for Ramayana and the Mahabharata, and I always look at it from my sort of perspective, is what I'm looking at, what I'm learning, how can that knowledge be transferred to the kids? So I'm always looking from the educational perspective. And from Mahabharata in particular, I think some of the things which I've shared with the students is, first of all, obeying the will of God. Now, if you look at the era, Lord Krishna. Now, Lord Krishna, if he wanted to, could say, and a lot of people say, could have prevented the war. But there was destiny, there's karma. There was millions going to die, and the earth there in India is still red. But I think the important thing is what is written, and we all travel on that journey. I think the second aspect is the respect. If you look at Lord Krishna sleeping and Duryodhana just before the war, and Yudhishthira both went. Yudhishthira is at the feet of Lord Krishna, and Duryodhana sat on the other side. What's interesting is what they both asked for. One asked for the armies and everything else. The other one is Lord Krishna himself and his blessings. And and what my sort of message to students always is, we chase materialistic things, but actually everything else is on the other side. And I think that the third important thing from Mahabharata is arrogance, virodhan, where when you have arrogance, you stop listening. And when you stop listening, where did it end up with? Was catastrophe, which is where it ended up in. And so from Mahabharata, there's an awful lot. I mean, I've watched with interest, but these are just a couple of the main things. And Ramayana, again, really was captivating in my mind. But again, a son obeying the will of the father, the obedience there, then not going back at all. I'm going to carry out your will. I'm going to carry out my mother. Even though this is my stepmother, I will carry out that out. And I think that is, and then followed up very closely with the love of brothers for each other, for Ram. And then, of course, you have the battle for evil against Ravana. And that obviously was going to happen. And in between, the illusion of the deer for Sita. And I think we ourselves often face such illusions. And how often do we chase them? So there are a lot of things which come out of it. I'm just saying some things. But I find both absolutely captivating.
Thank you. I think when you were describing these things, I was also absorbing the information and the wisdom or the knowledge which you were passing it to the audience. I felt, when you read these books, you always see from a completely different point of view, and then you try to absorb different things. So it's really great when different people share their own experiences about the books. I know you are an ardent reader because you gather information and knowledge from different places. Can you share a few more books which you read and you really liked it? And can you share the names of those books with the audience, please?
Well, Dan Brown's, the Da Vinci Code, Angels and Demons, Inferno, these are fictions. But they are on Catholicism. And I know the Vatican, and they were made into films. They are actually really great works and made into films. And I know the Vatican did not approve of them filming there. But again, from the literary point of view, they're fantastic. And for me, they had a personal interest because when I was in Scotland, the school I taught in, the Albert Primary, that was a Church of England school. And in those days, and you're looking at the 70s, there was, when I used to coach the Albert Primary boys football team, whenever we played a Catholic school, so you got a Church of England against a Catholic school, the parents on the sidelines, the abuse which was coming up, these are 11-year-old boys. And this is purely because the other team is from a different religion. And that to me was a huge eye-opener. Now you could say these parents didn't know any better. But if our team lost on a Saturday to a Catholic school, on a Monday morning, the staff from my school wouldn't speak to me as if I was playing there. This was the extent of the bigotry. And that was, as I said, as a young teacher, it was quite an eye-opener. But again, here, in part of the school, and I think how faith schools work together, is that I was asked by the Catholic Head Teachers Association to speak at that conference, and again to share the common faith values. And finally, if I could just say, just taking away from Dan Brown and those books, which are excellent books to read, is that I recently saw a reality program where they had celebrities who went to the Vatican. That was the last part of the journey. I don't know if you saw this. And Pope Francis had heard about that they were filming and these celebrities had come in. And he actually asked to see them. Now, in the group were those who are non-believers, those who had just lost their faith, those who were gay, those who were Jewish, that kind of thing, all different. And what was really powerful was that the Pope had invited them in. He didn't ask about their religions. He didn't ask about anything. He just hugged each and every one of them. And at the end of it, he said, I want you to pray for me. He didn't say, I'll pray for you and look, I am powerful or spiritual. He said, could each and every one of you pray for me? Because I've got a lot of difficult tasks ahead. And with your prayers, I might be able to accomplish them. I found that exceptionally powerful. Really, really powerful. And I think that's what religions do. And sometimes we are so caught up in our own that we forget, there's so many things we can learn of other religions.
I completely agree with you. Sometimes we are in our own bubble. We really do not care about the bigger picture. Sometimes we believe my way is the only way.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, recently I was discussing with someone, and that's about tolerance. And then I mentioned, sometimes I feel tolerance itself is a negative word.
Yeah.
When they say, we have to enhance the tolerance among different communities, no. I think rather than tolerance, we should say respect. If I'm saying this sentence that I'm tolerating you, it means I'm trying to say that I don't like you, but still I'm just tolerating your presence in the room. So this is not respect somewhere. Respect means maybe I may not agree with your faith, I may not agree with your statements, I may not agree with your vision and thoughts, but still I respect you because at least you have a way. I have also a way, you also have a way, and both the ways are leading to somewhere where we feel it will enlighten us.
And if you had a lot of understanding like that, there will be less strife in the world.
Yes.
It goes without saying.
I agree. So, my next question will become a bit different from all these things. My next question is about Westminster, which is also like a mother of democracy. As an expert in education, because your experience was so vast, finally you spoke at House of Commons in a program. How was your experience first time when you went there and discussed with them? How was your experience?
I think first of all, it was nerve-wracking. I was like absolutely shaking like a leaf. And all these MPs, ministers, everybody there. But I think when you start talking about your school, you then just get carried away into this. And it was nice to talk about how it was set up, the objectives it was set up with, and also gave them examples of how we begin to see that the first sort of the fruits of the labor, so to speak, are coming through. And I gave them examples, and they actually all listened with interest, which was really good. And there were times where we were talking about the sort of objectives the school had, and they all clapped. And they were all of different religions, because the ministers and the MPs, etc. And it did illustrate to me that we actually, all of us have, like we just said earlier on, lots of things in common. And I think that has been the strength of the school, is to bring these things to the fore. And I think the Department of Education has recognized it, which is why they've supported the school so much in its expansions.
That's great. So I know it was nerve-wracking, but then similarly, you were invited to 10 Downing Street by Tony Blair, by David Cameron, and maybe other prime ministers also. So how was that experience? Do you think that you thought that you will go there, you will have a nice langar over there, and you will enjoy the langar?
I think first I'll say that it was an honor for me to be invited. But I was very hesitant to go. And my staff and the students will tell you that my view is, and this is my personal view, is I'm just a very tiny cog in a wheel which turns, and that the school is a work of the staff there, it's a support of our parents, and it's also the students' work. And my feeling was, if I went there, actually it's these people who do all the work. And I'm standing there, and what they all said was that you would represent us by not going, you're actually letting us down. So, because I do feel, there are so many people who are part of the school. There's so much work which goes on, which is the reason for the school's success. And I felt like a fraud standing there, and because that's my personal feeling. So it took a bit of a persuading, but it was nice that Tony Blair was very warm and very welcoming, and so was David Cameron. But as I said, it was just going there to acknowledge the work of our teams. And that's the main reason I went.
I think that's great. There was one article which was published in the Times newspaper, but to serve them all my days. And what was the inspiration behind that article, and will you just tell us about that particular article which was published in that newspaper?
The Times, I think they did, first of all, I think schools are, even going back to the early 2000s, are judged by attainment, by results. The school's academic results were high, but I think also that what they'd understood from the DFE and etc. Was that the school was striving for, that the attainment was a byproduct, that the basic aims of the school was that the kids have respect, and that they actually, irrespective of who it is. And it was getting those very difficult things, which sometimes we can ignore. And it pains me now where we have chains of schools and we seem to go backwards. But I think they were interested in the concept of seva, humility, and so on. And who is this particular person, and what is his history? And that's really what made them write the article and ask me about my early life, which is what they did. But it was on the back of the school doing really well.
After establishing the school, have you been to India in any social functions or community functions where they discussed about the achievement of this school or anything?
I think what comes to mind as you were talking is that we regularly used to take a group of our kids to India, and they performed the kirtan in a lot of the famous gurdwaras in India. And one particular thing springs to mind is that on one particular such a visit to India, we had got off the plane, quickly got to the hotel, because we were invited to see Skanj Gurdwara in Delhi.
Yeah.
We went there quickly.
Sorry, I missed the name.
Skanj Gurdwara,
Yes.
Delhi. And we went there, and quickly got the kids on stage and they started the Kirtan. I was very much glued into to making sure the students were doing well. Outside, it was like the heavens had opened up, the monsoon weather. And next thing I heard a lot of sculling behind me. And a lot of the kids who were not doing Kirtan had gone to the window because the rain was coming inside the Gurdwara. Our kids who were still wearing the nice sort of clothes actually got on their hands and knees and trying to take the water out. These were our students. All the other Sangat was watching this with interest. And then the others joined in. And when the Kirtan finished, a gentleman approached me who was sitting in the Sangat. And he said, my 2 kids are going to the best school in Delhi. He said they will achieve, engineers or doctor, whatever. But he says one thing the school will not be able to teach them is what those kids did just then. And that was it made us proud.
I think this particular story has touched me, that sometimes people achieve everything in this materialistic world, but I think there's a very less which give nourishment to our spiritual and social aspect of the child.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
And these programs, these events, especially this type of activities, I think they bring the best part of those kids when they face those situations.
It does, and for us, it also it was nice that the message is getting through to those kids that others matter. And the other interesting thing, if I could just share with you, and your viewers might find interesting, and this is sometimes how we get afraid as teachers when we are faced with a challenge. We had, at the request of the parents, a young student joining us who was 90% blind. Now, straight away the school, you put up the barriers. Corridors are too small. This is health and safety. Every excuse not to allow the child in. What's interesting is that the child was admitted to our school. One of our staff said he was a passion to learn Braille. So she learned Braille to help the students. Other students, finding that he was 90% blind, involved in every activity. They used to have him in go outside and play. And could you go left, go right, that kind of thing. And the boy went on, and he is now currently studying a degree in music. Now, and from our fears, not the boy's fears, our fears, to where he is today.
I think this is the role of the teacher and education system when we give them power to realize their full potential, when they achieve their full potential. So all those hurdles, challenges which are in front of them, those hurdles and challenges should be dealt accordingly. So that I think that's the role of an education. I have a lot of questions, even in my mind, on paper, in my diary, but it seems there's a less time, but there's a lot to talk, but time is always a constraint factor. So one teacher, he mentioned with me, illusions are bound to be shattered. I am here to shatter all illusions. Yes, it is. Yes, it will irritate you. It will annoy you. That's my way of functioning and working. I will sabotage you from your very roots. Unless you are totally destroyed as a mind, there is no hope for you. Sometimes when this type of feeling comes, then the teacher, they come with the positive note. They change those feelings which sabotage those plans which are negative plans. We sabotage negativity. We basically build the positivity. That is basically the role of a teacher. That's a role of an educationist. I know there are a lot of different aspects of your personality. It's about your personal life, but hopefully at some point we will discuss those points. But I would like to thank you from MATV, from audience, and all those people who are involved in this program. And thank you, Harendra Singh Ji, and it was really nice to have you in this program today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.